anxious to step through the gate again, Major?
Yes, I am.
We all are.
Would you like us to bring back anything special?
No, thanks.
Groceries, new outfit, flatware?
No, just yourselves in one piece, please. Dial it up. You safe.
Welcome to the Jumping Puddles podcast. Be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and or YouTube. And follow us at Jumping Puddles Podcast on Tumblr and Instagram, and Jumping Pud Pod on Twitter. Hi, I'm American Sam, and with me are my fellow co-hosts Tor and Ash.
Hey!
Hi!
After finding a dead wraith on P3M 7636, the Atlantis expedition finds evidence that a missing Aiden Ford is responsible. But when searching for him, it is not only Ford they find.
Dun 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 dun.
dun. Yay! That one was good.
We got it.
That one was so good. Should we tell the gang? By the way, I was going to ask, do we want to tell the viewers what misfortune has befallen us?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just for full transparency, y'all, this is not the first time we recorded this. We had this whole thing. We were about like an hour and a half into a recording, and then shit went haywire. People cried. I'm kidding. No, it's fine. Yeah, so basically, everything just crashed, and we were just having a really hard time, and then later the file was corrupted. So, we're back again to record for Runner. This is our second take, though. So just FYI, if we kind of sound like we have said these things already, or if we say, have I said this already, just bear with us, because it's us remembering our previous recording.
Take two.
Yeah. Runner, take two.
Yay. Without cute costumes.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I guess, again, we're going to date this episode again. But we had actually filmed this around Halloween, and we had fully dressed up in super cute costumes, and we had, like, explained what our costumes were. And then the universe was like, no.
She conspired against us.
Yeah. The first time.
Yeah.
For the first time
Puddles
ever.
podcast. Yeah, first loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. We've been lucky so far. We haven't really lost any episode before.
Mm-mm.
Super lucky. And considering the amount of, like, technical difficulties we have, like, how have we not fucked something up before? Like, I don't know. But it had to happen. And it happened in the beginning of season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at least we waited that long. But that was our little disclaimer. And now we can jump right into the episode.
Woo! All right, so what do we want to tackle first in Runner?
Ford. How we feel about him.
Yeah, this is our goodbye to Ford episode. And an interesting send-off it is, for sure.
I love it. Well, it's just, okay, what did we say last time? What can we say that we don't sound too depressed right from the bat?
Right? I'm trying to, like, censor myself a little bit.
Yeah.
In what I'm saying.
Okay, so I think you asked, how do we feel about Ford? I feel really bad for him.
Yeah.
He has such a difficult journey, such a difficult story, and this episode, I think I like this episode. I think it's really good. It's I think it's a bit weird that they put this could have been the last time we see Ford, right? And I think it's a bit weird that they put that episode together with the introduction of the new guy. And I think it could very well have been 2 separate episodes, and then I think it would have given both characters more, I don't know, would have done them more justice, especially Ford, because Ford had been a lead character for one season. We talked about it a lot in this last season, that he often didn't have a lot to do. Like, he sometimes disappeared halfway through the episode, or just wasn't really there, wasn't really given a lot to do. Didn't really get a solo episode. So we didn't know a lot about him, about his family. Like, we got like little crumbs here and there. And I feel like in this episode we see the most of him, maybe. And it's sad because that's the last time we see him. Not the last time, but like one of the last times we see him, and we get so much about his character. Of course, he has changed now. He's, basically a drug addict. And there's a lot in this episode.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to unpack in regards to Ford here. I think it's disappointing that at a point in the story where they had given him substance and they had given him this sort of character arc, for lack of a better word, something for his character to do or to be on the show, he was being written out of it. I think it would have been interesting from a more drama perspective if they had kept Ford on the show, on the base, while struggling with this sort of wraith enzyme addiction and / disfiguration / transformation, and it could have made for really interesting character arc from him that was lacking in the first season, but we didn't get it, unfortunately. And where they did take his character later on was kind of nowhere. So kind of setting up this interesting thing to go nowhere. So that bit of it was disappointing. However, I did feel like this episode brought to light, like you said, Ash, a lot of Ford's inner demons, for lack of a better word, that we kind of got glimpses of during the first season, but very, very briefly. And also, we kind of got to see a little bit more his relationships with people. Particularly, I think, Rodney, number one, but a little bit of John as well, which was nice to see.
Going back to what you said, Tor, a little bit earlier, that's such a good point. I think it would have been really cool if he had struggled with the enzyme on Atlantis for the rest of the season, you know, and it could have been, I mean, there's so many different directions I could have taken that, you know, especially because, I mean, maybe in the end, like, he does do, like, the hero sacrifice, and then that's his final send-off, you know, something happens with Michael, and he's kind of the one to pay the price, or maybe he survives it, but, like, he's can't be in the team anymore, so they send him back to Earth or something. So there's so many different ways that they could have kept him on, and I think it would have been really fun to have him on the base and to be struggling with this while the team is, like, kind of having a new person in, and, like, what's that relationship like now? Like, are they do they have beef? Like, what's the problem here? And, you know, we've said this on multiple occasions, but the best characters in Stargate, they're always the people who have connections to the villains in some way. They're the most interesting backstories, you know, like Vala to the Ori is, like, my absolute favorite thing in SG-1 because it ties into the Ori and the Gold in such interesting ways. And, you know, we've mentioned Teyla and Ronon, who we meet this episode, and they have such interesting ties to the Wraith. And I think giving that extra layer to Ford would have been so interesting and would have kind of given him a purpose, which is something that they have said before. They were like, oh, we didn't have like a spot for him, or we just, like, didn't know what to do with him. Like, we felt like his character had run out of things. And I think it's such a pathetic excuse. Because, I mean, us three sat here for 5 minutes and made this up. Like, there's so many different ways that they could have incorporated him into at least like one more season if they really wanted to get him out, in a much more seamless, I think, transition, instead of just being like, he's evil now, and then we know what happens to him at the mid-season finale, and then he's just like, well, he might be alive, he might not, bye. And, you know, because it's not only like strange for the audience, you know, it's also strange for the characters, because people have always made this like criticism against the show and the characters. They're always like, why does the team not give a shit about Ford? They're always like, Ford does not, they don't give a fuck. Like, after he leaves, they're like, anyways, like, they barely ever mention him ever again. If they ever, I don't think they ever mention him again, genuinely, until we see him in John's fake dream. But yeah, so I think what Tora said earlier would have been really cool to see him on the season, throughout the whole season, and having that extra element of, are we curing him? Is it working? Like, are we learning more about the Wraith? But like, is this even ethical too? Because like, we're curing him against his will, and it could have, you know, and then he gets better, and then is he really better? Does he, like, when Michael comes, like, is it weird that they're bonding? Like, is it, you know, is there a problem there? I don't know. Jumping Puddles canon, though, we'll do that. He'll be in our story.
Yeah, I think in the Jumping Puddles canon, he would return with them to Atlantis at the end of this episode, maybe, or I don't really remember what's happening in the mid-season two-parter. And side note, does he really? We don't know if he dies.
It's totally ambiguous. No idea.
They literally, yeah.
Okay.
They're literally like, he could be out there. We'll never know.
Yeah,
and then
fun.
they were like, he's never. He died, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're not going to look for him or anything, because why would we do that?
Yeah. It's, I think I would like to incorporate him into our canon, as he struggles with this for a while, but he somehow overcomes it and then just joins a different team, maybe with, what did we say, Lorne, Cadman, and Parrish?
Yeah.
It's just the four of them. They are like AR2 or maybe AR6, I don't know, but they're just out there doing their own shenanigans. And yeah, it's so weird that the team doesn't, that the show kind of forgot about him after they wrote him off, because it kind of reminded me, the scene, I think it's not in the end of Ronon. It's when he first leaves Atlantis, when he steals the jumper, and there's a scene with John in front of the gate, and I think Elizabeth is going to talk to him, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna find him. And to me, that felt a lot like in SG1, when in the end of Children of Our Gods, when Daniel says, like, yeah, Sheree is still out there, and Scara as well, and yeah, we're gonna find them, we're gonna look for them. And that's an arc that goes over several seasons. They don't bring them up in every episode, but every few episodes it kind of comes up that that's the purpose for their missions at first. And it's weird that it just kind of forgot about Ford. And yeah, it's just unfair to the character. Especially after he'd been a main character.
And like you mentioned, Sam, it would be really juicy for interpersonal relationships too. Like having Ronon come in when he's still like convalescing or recovering or whatever. And having those old insecurities kind of popping up, and then actually having them addressed textually. And kind of giving a reason to why he was so sidelined in the first season. Like, kind of making that worth it for the audience, like having it pay off in a sort of emotional way. Like, oh, we were setting up for this sort of emotional arc for Ford, instead of it being like, well, we didn't know what to do with him, so that was it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, I think in our Jumping Puddles canon, he is going to be in this season. We're going to bring him up and be like, oh, what's it for during this episode? in our jumping Puddles canon. Like, he's gonna be in a hospital bed. Like, we're gonna incorporate this, okay? So this is why you have to watch every episode of Jumping Puddles, not to plug. But you're gonna miss some important shit because we're gonna be referencing Ford, and if you don't watch this episode, you're gonna be like, what the hell is Ford isn't in this episode? Or you'd be like, well, he is in our brain. Yeah, he's gonna be in throughout the season. And even in the future, because we said we want to put him with Cadman, Parrish, and Lorne, and we had I'm so mad that got deleted because I don't remember, but we had like a whole tangent about like all of our headcanons on how the four of them would act on like the base. I think we said like Ford and Cadman would be kind of like besties. What else did we say?
Oh, they would beat up people who would make fun of Parrish for his plant love.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh, yeah. They would all be. They would. I feel like if they were a team, Cadman and Ford would always run around causing trouble, and Parrish would wander off and just find a new plant to be interested in. And Lorne is kind of like the dad of the group, trying to keep them all together and keep them all alive.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh my god, okay. Ford and Cadman are like off like hanging out with like a new like species they found. They're like, oh my god, this is so much fun. Cut to like Lorne like trying to like build a rope to yank Parrish out of this hole. And Parrish is like, oh wait. Parrish is like, you can leave me in here. There's like some really cool samples like in here. And Lorne's like, no, I'm gonna get you out. Lorne and Teyla meet up for lunch like every few weeks, and they just like rant. They have a therapy session because they're like, we're both the parents of all of our teams. And Tayla's like, well, I tried this technique to get John to listen. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna try that for Cadman. Like, they're just exchanging parenting tips.
Yeah, they would do that.
This is making me wish we had like a spin-off series with the B team. It's just like we mentioned before, like a lower decks, but it's just them doing silly stuff.
Yeah.
Also would love if there was an episode where like Lorne was in trouble, he gets like kidnapped or something. Like John always gets kidnapped for his gene, and like after fooling around and not realizing he was gone for forever, Parrish, Cadman, and Ford have to figure out a way to get him back.
Oh my god, please, yes. And they make Parrish the bait.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
Because they're like, you don't have a gun. Like, you can do, like, he's like, I don't have a gun. And they're like, exactly. Like, you have to do this so we can shoot them when they come close to you. And he's like, oh my god.
Or he's using the technique that he learned from John, because he used to be the bait. Because he was the youngest. But now he can use someone else. He's very happy about that.
Yeah.
See, it's really not that hard to incorporate him. Like, just show us every then and now, just a little scene, just them shipping off or coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. Me dropping it every time. We mentioned it last time. But Ford just gives us such, like, golden retriever energy.
Yes.
You know, like from the little happiness moments that we got. Obviously not in this episode. Or actually, there was a little bit of it in this episode too. We'll talk about that actually. But like the little crumbs of like his true personality are so sweet. Like he seems like such a sweetie. He's definitely the youngest. You could tell he gives off baby energy, which is just so cute. And it's just so sad that we barely got to see any of that. But there's a little bit of that in this episode.
Yeah, those were really the kind of the hardest scenes to watch, I felt like. Because he was snapping back and forth between this, I don't want to say crazy, between his like evil personality and his, the side that we have sometimes seen in like his excited and baby or little brother energy. And every time he snapped back into that side, into that we knew that would make him, I don't know, likable, it was always like, oh, he's still there, but he's changed so much. And he sometimes I think in the beginning, especially, it didn't really. I didn't get the feeling that he was aware that he was changing sometimes so much. But I think in the scene where we got to talk about his relationship with Rodney later. But when he shoots not at Rodney, but like at the bushes around him, and Rodney's like, "You could have killed me," and you see Ford snapping back into his like. I think he's genuinely scared of himself, what he just did, because he lost control, and maybe that's one instance where he realizes that something is off. But at the same time, he thinks that how the enzyme has changed him, it has made him better, and yeah, just. He was so nuanced in this episode. You saw so many different layers of his character. They were all amplified by the enzyme, I guess. But that's what made him so interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned something really interesting there about Ford and his wraith superpower. The sort of idea that, like we've been mentioning all season 1 and today, Ford is the youngest in the group, and I feel like he has the most to prove. Maybe even more than Teyla, who is not from Earth or doesn't have their training or whatever, but holds her own obviously as part of the team. I feel like within Ford, we've seen these glimpses of sort of insecurity, him coming off as kind of an asshole when he's trying to be a leader because he's so desperately trying to assert his authority. And this idea of him, having these powers because of the Wraith enzyme, not only is it addicted to him because of it's a drug, but also because of the abilities that it gives him to I guess, in a way, it's sort of makes him feel like he can contribute more to the cause of Atlantis. Like he can make a bigger difference than he could as just regular Ford, which I think not only stems from his own insecurity, but maybe a failing of, unfortunately, his friends in a way, which I guess we'll get into when we talk about his relationship with Rodney. And yeah, it's just so sad and so delicious because it gives his character such a tragic but relatable and emotional core that unfortunately, again, we don't get to see carried on through the show.
I love that he says so, that it makes me so delicious because it's true. It's what gives him his character's substance. And what you said, that all that comes from his insecurities and that he feels that he can contribute more now. It makes me so sad because it shouldn't be like that. He shouldn't feel like he has to constantly prove himself to the team, to Atlantis, because I'm sure he was selected for this expedition. He wasn't just like sent there. He was selected for it because of his abilities. So yeah, that's really sad.
Yeah, and he's so young too, and he's already John's second in command, I'm pretty sure, textually. And so yeah, it's just it's sad. And I appreciate how Rodney throughout the episode was telling him, you don't need the enzyme. You don't have to prove anything to us. You can just come home. Like, it's not, you don't have to worry about that stuff. Like, we don't care about that. We just want you to get better. And I think it was even more powerful because it was coming from Rodney. Somebody who doesn't mince words or, lie to make people feel better. And he's the one telling Ford that, that kind of stuff doesn't matter. And they just care about him. I thought that was really powerful and spoke a lot to the sort of relationship that they have underneath the surface of like big brother, little brother energy and annoying each other. that they had in season 1.
You nailed that right on the head. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like sadder in a way that Rodney is finally saying all the things that Ford like would have loved to hear when he was like quote unquote like normal or like quote unquote like regular. It just sucks that like no one in the team like noticed how like Ford was like almost like drowning at some point in his own insecurity. And it kind of just makes them all look even worse. I mean, we already criticized them for being shitty ass friends, for them being like, well, he's probably dead, and they just kind of like moved on with their lives. But this is even worse, because now they realize kind of their mistakes, I guess you could say, or at least Rodney does. I'm not sure about John and Teyla because they were off with Ronon, which again brings us back to the whole this should have been a solo Ford episode and not split up with Ronon. Going back to what you said about Rodney and Ford, though, man, it just sucks that this is the one episode we get of like their dynamic, because it's so freaking good. I mean, everything about it. David and Rainbow just knocked it out of the freaking park. Their chemistry together was just so good for barely having any scenes together in the first season. Their acting was so good. The way they could switch from like humor to like serious was insane, like masterwork, because it's just them two like yelling in the forest for most of the episode. And so just a little shout out, a little gold star to both of them, because absolutely killed it. But, you know, I fucking love this moment so much. Before we get into the sadness, I fucking love it. Of the one where Ford is just shoving Rodney into a bush. He's like, quiet, pushes him into a bush. Like, what the fuck? Like, there's so many of those little moments in this episode that just, I think, really work hard and balance the tone of the episode, you know, because it is a quite serious episode. But there's those little moments between them that just bring me so much joy.
Yeah, their scenes together were all excellent, both from the acting and just also just the episode, the script, and everything. It was just fantastic. I love the first time, like, we have Lorne and Rodney looking for Ford, and when they think they hear Ford, Lorne kind of pushes Rodney to talk to Ford, to show himself, and Rodney's kind of like, what do I do? Why do I need to talk? And then he says, hey Ford, it's me, your best friend, Rodney. And it's like, oh,
No.
best friend? Really? And I'm not sure if he's serious or if he's just trying to lure him in. But the fact that he said it, even if he just said your friend, it would have been so wholesome. And yeah, it's
For sure. I love Rodney's whole like full circleness in this episode, where I feel like at the beginning, like that scene that you just mentioned, he was talking to Lorne and he was kind of being sarcastic, and he was like, yeah, me and Ford have so much in common. Like, I talked to him about my experiments, and he tells me how he can dismember a man using weapons. And I mean, he's telling the truth, but at the same time, despite the fact that they don't have very much in common, we can see the genuine care they have for each other in this episode. And that they did have a friendship, despite that, throughout season 1. And, you know, there's so many little moments that show that. Like, Rodney gossiping with Ford about what's been going on Atlantis when he was away. And, you know, Ford being actually interested in what Rodney has to say, like the fact that he was so excited about John's promotion with no sort of like jealousy or anger in his voice at all. Like, he was just genuinely happy for him. And then, you know, the moment you mentioned where he, out of like a fit of frustration and manic energy, almost shoots Rodney and is really afraid that he could have almost killed Rodney in that moment. And then Rodney turning around and forgiving him for almost shooting him and still wanting Ford to come home regardless of what he just did. And then Ford running off subsequently and Rodney chasing after him instead of going back to the jumper to safety. So it's just those little things throughout the episode that I just really appreciated seeing their relationship come full circle, but also sort of Rodney's character arc that he went through in season 1 as well, being reflected in his relationship with Ford. Like, yeah, he's an asshole, but, you know, he really cares about these people. He cares about his friends. And inside, he's a little marshmallow. He's a marshmallow covered in steel. Our Rodney.
Oh my god. That's the perfect way to describe it. That's so funny. Yeah, and just, again, jumping on off of Tora's words, I think it's really interesting, and I'm going to say the word sad again. Lots of sadness in this episode. But I think it's so interesting and sad. We kind of see all shades of their relationship in this episode. Like, we see the humor, we see just sort of like their kind of awkwardness because they don't think they're the same. Like, they don't see each other like eye to eye. Like, Rodney sees him as just the military guy, and like Ford sees him as like the smart one. But they haven't broken down those barriers. And we also see the negative side, their toxic side. The toxic side of the relationship. You know, we talked about it. But I love when they're fighting and Ford brings up Rodney's like previous bullying of him. He is not gonna let Rodney go without bringing that up. And you can kind of tell that like it's been on his mind for a while, or it's something he remembers and he did not like, and he kept quiet at that time. And now that he's super forward, he feels like he can bring that up, and he feels strong enough to reveal like his vulnerability, which is so sad. And I feel like oh man, I don't remember Rodney's face in that moment, but I want to say I almost feel like Rodney must have been so taken back, and it's just going off of what I just assume about his character. I feel like he must have just been like, you remember that? Or like, you like actually like kept thinking about that after, whereas probably to Rodney it was just like a comment or two, and he's probably thinking, well, I've said worse to other people, so it won't matter. But he didn't realize, like, they both just didn't see each other as more than just their roles in Atlantis. And I wonder if, you know, well, at least in our canon, we know they'll get over that. But I wonder if the show had actually bothered to keep Ford around, if they would have kind of broken down those barriers. And I want to say they wouldn't have, because yeah. But no, the fighting was good though. I loved it. I love the fighting. Give me all the angst and the toxic sides of the relationship. I love it.
Absolutely. You bring up an excellent point. I feel like Rodney and Ford are sort of, their biases work against them in their relationship with each other. Where, like you said, Rodney views Ford as this like jock, and Ford views Rodney as this like nerd. And I think their insecurity over those labels and that station creates a lot of tension in their relationship. So like comments like in what was the episode? In the episode where they were playing Prime Not Prime, and they basically called Ford stupid, bullying him. You know, that stuff hurts, and I don't think that they realized it in the moment, like Rodney and Zelenka, because it's like, he's a jock, like he doesn't care what we say. We're like the kids he used to push in lockers when he was in high school. So yeah, it's a lot of that like putting people into boxes thing that's awful.
Yeah, they really did this.
Yeah,
For 5 seasons.
yeah. And it's not just Rodney and the military guys. There are other relationships that are the same. I don't know if we want to start that already, but... And it's not that bad, but Lorne and Parrish are... Again, they have this... There's the jock and the science guy. And... I mean, they have one scene and it's fun, but...
There's always that tension there.
Yeah, which we perceive it as sexual tension.
Yeah, because it's funner that way.
Yeah, because we're like, ooh, I see it. And these bitches were probably like just writing out all their trauma and just projecting all of it into these fictional characters. And us idiots are like, ooh, it's because they're gay. It's because they're fucking like. If you don't want us to think, they can't blame us. If you don't want us to think that these characters are fucking, then go to therapy.
I think that might be my favorite comment of this podcast.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like we never realized how bad it was until we sat down to talk about it right now, and I'm like,
Yeah.
It's shocking.
it's bad.
It's an
It's
SG1
really bad.
too.
It's an SG1 and in universe.
Yup.
Oh my gosh. Oof.
And that's like,
Oh.
that is serious levels of...
Ash and Young beat each other up all the time. To the point where we were joking. There are screenshots of us being like, ha ha ha, it's because they're banging, hate banging.
Hate. Focus on hate. They are hate fucking.
Hate fucking.
Also, can I just mention real quick that I'm so proud of us that we got Tor so far into universe that she mentions universe. We made it.
I know, I turned to the
It's
dark
like,
side,
wow.
guys. I'm sorry.
No, we're not even that far into it, and I'm so happy that it happened already.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. When you start it, it's like... Side note, but when you start Stargate Universe, it's like, it sucks you in. You're like, first you hate watch it, and then you're like, oh wait, maybe it's actually not horrible.
That's literally it. I feel like that's... and I think a lot of people don't get past the hate watching part.
Yeah.
And that's really,
Yeah.
really sad because we are at episode 12, I think. And yes, there are a few episodes that are really not good, but there are a few episodes that are so excellent. And as I remember, it only gets better from like mid-season 1 or maybe season 2. And then it just gets really, really, really fucking good. And yeah. No, it's nuanced. It's good.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun thing to watch. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's because I'm watching with you guys, but it's fun.
I think it helps. It helps.
Yeah.
Because we have
definitely
Sam and she's always like, look, this is fun, this is good.
Well, no, because again, like, I think it's so true. I think people like watch it with like hate in their eyes, and like, hey, I did too. That was me. And then I watched the second season. I was like, okay, this is better. But I literally watched it like a year ago, and then now I was like, oh, let me like rewatch it. I want to get clips, and so I enjoyed my time so much more the second time, and now the third time with you guys, I'm like, this is even better. Like, it really does get better with like every rewatch. I feel like.
Yeah.
And I, again, better if we're going to keep this in. But if we do keep this in, I'll just put another plug in. I urge you. I plead. I beg for people to just get past the hate watch stage. Just pick characters that you like and, like, watch it for them. And everyone else that you don't like, just ignore them. It's hard. And if you don't want to ignore them, just make funny stuff up about them. That's how we deal with Rush and Young. They're banging in our eyes. Not because we want them to, not because we ship it. It's a hate ship.
Yeah.
But we just need to make it fun so that we can watch the show.
Toxic worsties.
Yes! I was just thinking, what did we say when I remembered worsties, but yeah. Toxic worsties.
Yep.
Toxic worsties.
They deserve each other.
Yeah, truly. Truly.
Because no one else deserves them.
Exactly.
No one.
In not a good way.
Yeah.
Yes.
No one has to deal with that. No one should have to deal
Yeah.
with that.
Anyways.
Let's do. Unless did anyone have anything else to say about like Ford, Rodney?
I was all done.
I love how we always bring up characters who are not in the show yet, or not even in the same show. Because we did it with Ronon, and I think we had quite a long Jennifer rant last time we recorded this. And I'm not mad that that's not happening again, hopefully.
Yeah.
But we still brought her up again. I was like, we're always talking about characters that are not here yet.
Yeah, I know. It's like weird. I guess we feel their absence, and so we like have to bring them up somehow.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
man.
we really need. We have to continue forward. We have to do him justice. We need to do that.
Yeah. I already like what our universe has in store for him.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lorne and Parrish. Let's get some happiness in here.
Heck yeah.
We finally meet Parrish.
Woohoo! The scene
He
that
ate up.
spawned 5 million kajillion fics on AO3. This one scene.
One fucking scene. And how many they are in the top, like, in fourth
think, right?
place on AO3.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fourth popular ship in the Atlantis tag, which is insane because they have one fucking scene.
Have one scene. Crazy. It's like 600 or like 500 to 600 fics.
Yeah.
About with them. Okay, that's correct. Parrish, my son. He has 2 scenes. Not one in season 5. Okay, we'll get there in 10 years. But in one scene, he fucking ate.
Mm-hmm.
He ate his 5 minutes of screen time straight up. I would die for Parrish. I love Parrish. He is so freaking cute, and I'm so mad he didn't just stick around because I need him and Lorne to be hanging out all the time. I need to see them get together. I need to see their wedding. I need to see him and Katie Brown being best friends. That's true. That's the truth. Katie and Parrish are besties.
Yep. They would be so cute. They are both such sunshine personalities.
Yeah.
And them together would just be the cutest. Them sitting together, trying to figure out names for new plants they find.
Cuteness overload.
So freaking cute. And I think we've mentioned this before. Or maybe we haven't. I don't know at this point. I think in our Jumping Puddles canon, did we all talk about, or did we all agree that like they're like the first couple that like kind of got married and like they're just kind of like the OG couple of Atlantis. They're like the couple that everyone's like, oh my god, like they're so cute, domestic. Like a couple that everyone's like, that's true love. Yeah. So they're the old couple in our canon.
They definitely have old married couple energy in this scene, so I understand why their dynamic spawned so many fics. And it's not even just like fics of them as like a background pairing with like John and Rodney or like somebody else in the foreground. Like no, like they have their own fics like alone with no other pairing in them. And we can see why. Like their chemistry is really fun. I love like the whole like Lorne rolling his eyes like, babe, not another plant. And Parrish is like, yes, another plant, and like going on and on about the plant. And Lorne being like, okay. It was just so great. I love that.
Oh, I love that part too. I think he's like, oh my gosh, look at that. And Lorne's like, what? Like Lorne's like ready to like fight, like who is it? And Parrish is like, a plant. Or he's like, like this is something. And Lorne's like, oh my god, like I can it's so cute. And I think there's so much unnecessary touching too in the scene. Like Lorne like grabs Parrish, is like, no, we're going this way, and he's like, come on. Or like his hands like on his back, I think at one point, and he's like, no, or like pushing him like out the door. So I love it. It's like a 2-minute scene, and it's the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Truth.
I can just relate to Parrish a bit because plants. Like I'm not a botanist, but I think if I was in Atlantis, I would either be a linguist or or historian, but probably more linguist or a botanist, because I do have plants. And like Parrish is like me in IKEA, like, oh my god, there's a plant. Oh my god, look at this one. I can't get all of them, but I want to. And yeah, it's so adorable to watch, and it's just people being excited about something they are passionate about. It's always wholesome to see. Also, something I wanted to mention, the actor, I forgot his name, but he's also in Sanctuary, the show with Amanda Tapping, and he plays Nikola Tesla.
What?
And he's a vampire.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. He's he's a recurring character. Yeah.
Interesting. Now I feel like
And
I have
he's
to
so
watch.
much fun. I think he's one of my favorites in Sanctuary. He's a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's been on the list for a while. But that's definitely getting bumped up because I need to see him as a vampire. I think he's so cute.
He's so
I need to see
sassy.
him as a I need to see him as a hot vampire.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, yeah. Also, so I don't know why I found that so funny, but Lorne referred to a wraith as a sucker. Like, oh, look, here's a dead sucker. Oh, we got a dead sucker. And I was like, I get it, but you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. It's kind of like a double entendre almost, because not that way. But like, yeah, they suck your like life out of you or whatever. But he could be like, oh, it's such a sucker, like for dying. So.
Oh my god.
English is such a funny language.
It is.
I love it.
It's really annoying, but it's also fun.
Yeah. True that.
Well, I just wanted to bring up really quick, because as we're segueing closer and closer to Ronon, which is like the big one. I just wanted to quickly mention how much I freaking love that scene in the beginning of John bullying Rodney for coming in late, and then the entire team like bullying Rodney for his concerns about the sun or like the sunscreen. It's these little moments that just fill me up with so much joy, and I love that like everyone, including Lorne, it's like Carson, Lorne, Teyla, and Elizabeth just turn to him and they're like, "You are not complaining about the sun right now." And they're all walking past him and he's like, well, it's like a valid concern. Like he's just trying to explain himself and it's like it's not working. Everyone's just like, dude, just go. Just get out there.
Teyla just deadpanning what does he say? Like, oh, my skin is very fair. Don't you see that? And she's just like, yes. Yeah. I love them. I love them as a team. Like, not just the AR1, but just the whole team, and them all hanging out in Elizabeth's office. It's so cute. Yeah.
I imagine like they went to the mainland one time and Rodney wore swim trunks and like the reflection of the sun off his legs blinded Teyla, and so she's like, yes, we know you're pale.
Oh my gosh. I'm crying. That's canon now. That's very canon now.
But I it's always Rodney loving hours in Tor's life. I'm obsessed with the fact that he had made his own sunscreen and it's cocoa butter scented because I guess he likes cocoa butter smell, and it's SPF 100 and it's waterproof. Like, damn, Rodney, if you patented that, you'd be rich right now. Now that I think of it, I think there's a fic where, like, someone was like, AU, where Rodney sold his sunscreen and got rich or something.
Stop! Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's how he got rich in The Road Not Taken.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't a .com millionaire. He sold sunscreen.
Yeah.
He sold his waterproof 100 SPF sunscreen.
Hey, I would buy it.
Oh, instantly. Leak the recipe, Rodney. Leak it.
I also thought it was really cute that, his concern for the radiation extended not only to himself, but the team as well. So, when they went back for radiation suits, they brought back four with them, and he was like, guys, like, you should put one on, and no one wanted to wear one. He gave severe mom energy in that scene, which is so great. I love a helicopter mom Rodney moment. It's so good.
It's funny because you wouldn't expect Rodney to be the mom friend. But in this, I guess he just takes radiation very serious.
Of course.
Yeah. It was adorable. He cares about people.
He
cares so
does.
much about people. Not just about Ford, about everyone. Yeah. And he brought all the suits.
Yeah, and he's even willing to
put them on.
share. He was like, we could take turns.
Here's the mom friend in that he's like worrying. He's not the one that'll take care of you though. That's Teyla.
Yeah.
But he's the one who's like, guys, don't worry, I brought the snacks.
No.
It's like,
no.
guys, like,
I ate all the snacks.
That's true too.
Valid.
But I feel like he's the one that's like worrying, like, I don't know if we should do this. Or he's like, let's be cautious here. And then Teyla's the one who's holding back your hair as you're throwing up in the bathroom.
Yeah.
God, I feel so bad segueing into this.
Let's do it.
Well, no. I was gonna do something else first, and then
okay.
But I was gonna say, sorry to zap the fun out of this part. But we need to talk about Rodney. And I think I mentioned it in The Intruder, or maybe in I don't know, one of the sieges. I don't know. I've mentioned it recently where I was like, I'm very curious to see when we can start to notice the regression of Rodney's character. And unfortunately, I think we made it, guys. I think this is the start.
Yay!
I know. I really did enjoy Rodney this episode. Don't get me wrong. I just think there were certain moments where I felt like he was the only one carrying the comic relief. And I think this is when the writers were like, oh, wait, David could do the whole thing by himself. Like, he doesn't need anyone. Like, he's so good on his own. And I think, like, you see it here, I think the foundation of what Rodney is going to become, which is a caricature of himself. Because there were, like, some funny moments, but I also think that there were just some where I was like, I would have preferred if, like, or I don't think I would have seen season 1 Rodney doing that. Like, there's kind of, like, already a difference, a split between the two. And it just, I think it really undermines his character a little bit. Not too much. I think when you watch the episode by itself, like you're watching it for the first time, I don't think you could really tell the difference that much. But I think with the context of, like, how we're studying each episode and how we've kind of said that we've been waiting for the episode to come where this regression hits, that I think we were able to pick it up on this episode. And spoiler alert, because we already watched Duet, we just haven't recorded it yet. I think this trend just continues in Duet, and you can see it completely in Duet. That I think you can say that Runner is the first part, and then past Duet, it's like, okay, like, honestly, like, I think they cross the line many times in Duet. That's a topic for this episode. But yeah, so I love this episode. And I love certain moments in this episode. But I think it just kind of hurt to watch certain scenes because I was like, and there it is. We're never going to get the more serious side of Rodney as much ever again. Or we do get it, but it becomes less and less. It becomes less and less of a person or a real person that you feel could exist, and more of just kind of like the silly guy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I thought what you said was really striking. There's like a level of goofiness to his character in certain moments in this episode that we just did not see in season 1. You know? Like, I'm trying to like think back in the season to anything, and I can't even compare. Like nothing. It's a big leap that they did, and I don't like it. I think it's fun sometimes when it's used like liberally, and not like constant, and he's the only one being in the comedic relief, and it's always slapstick. But I feel like it kind of devolves as we go on, for sure. You're right. So, not looking forward to that as we continue on. But, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's very interesting to watch Atlantis this time around with a more analytic eye, maybe with a more, not as focused on one character. And I think it was quite early. I feel like it was quite early when we started this podcast that I think it was Sam who mentioned that Rodney eventually becomes a caricature of himself. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what you mean, but we'll see. And I do see it now, and I understand what you mean now. And I think in this episode, it evens. Like, yeah, if you know how it continues, then you definitely see this as, like, the groundwork. But I think in this episode, it kind of evens itself out, because he is quite serious in other scenes, yeah, okay, it's all with Ford. But we see not only him as a comedic relief, not only him and his physical comedy, but also him getting angry or scared. Like we get such a range of emotions of him in this episode, which I love. I love emotional people. Like emotional. I feel like a lot when people say, "Oh, I'm getting emotional," it's mostly just like crying. But I mean emotional on like every level, like full range of emotions. And I like when characters experience the whole range of emotions. And I feel like we got that from Rodney in this episode, and I enjoyed that. And yeah, with that I also enjoyed the comedy. And but yeah, it's now that you've pointed out, both of you, that he's the only one who's there for the comedic relief. It's yeah, it shouldn't be just on one character to carry that.
Yeah, and I think it's so, especially what's frustrating about it in this episode is that, like, they had a comic relief duo. We saw it in the first 2 minutes. It was Lorne and Parrish. They only had them for the first scene, and then they just got rid of them, and they made Rodney do the heavy lifting the entire time. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I think it's not, again, what Ash said, it's not even like that bad in the episode because it is balanced, but I think it would have been even better if they had cut out some of his more, like, he rants about sunscreen like 5 times, and I was like, they were beating the horse. They were beating that damn horse, like, with that joke. I was like, God damn, they are milking every little laugh of that joke as possible. And I think that if they could have cut like 2 of them or 3 of them and given like some of these scenes to like the C plot, they could have had a C plot with Lorne and Parrish, or maybe that would have made the episode way too overstuffed, which you're going to talk about with Ronon, because there are things that are overstuffed. But instead of those useless Ronon flashbacks, it could have been a whole thing with Lorne and Parrish. Maybe like Parrish is on the hunt for that damn plant, and Elizabeth is like, it could have made Elizabeth involved too. Elizabeth's like, you have to get that damn plant, and Lauren's like, are you goddamn kidding me? She's like, yes. Parrish says it could like heal like something, like it could help, like it's caffeine or something, like. Ooh. And they're like, well, goddamn, let's go. And so like it could have been a whole thing about like them two trying to chase down this plant, or like an animal, or just something silly, and then it cuts to Ronon and John and Teyla, and then Ford and Rodney. And I think that would just been maybe it's overstuffed, but I think honestly it would have been better overall to balance out the comic relief. And also, I guess we can kind of segue a little bit into that, but to get rid of those damn useless Ronon flashback scenes. Absolutely horrid.
Yeah, this is a side note, but I feel like Rodney overall as a character, I think throughout the show, and maybe we'll delve into this more when we do a bonus episode on him, I feel like he is the most three-dimensional of all the characters because the writers give him so much. The problem becomes when they give him everything. Like you said, like, he's the heart of the show. He's also the slapstick comedian. He's the straight man. Like, it's just like too many things. And they need to give the other characters something to do in the episode besides Rodney doing it all. Like, he does the exposition. He explains all the science. Like, it's just everything. He does everything all the time. So, he gets all the dialogue. Like, it's just too much. So, yeah. Balance definitely the key going forward. But jumping back to Ronon, yes, I agree. Ronon should have had an individual introduction episode. And regarding the flashbacks in particular, why I find them so deplorable is because it's so much more interesting for your character to have an air of mystery about him when you first introduce him. And then later on reveal all this backstory about him. Maybe in a flashback episode. Like in, I guess, the Teyla-esque episode, but way earlier. Like happening in season 2 instead of season 3. And then in this episode, leaving some of his origins a bit of a mystery. The idea of, or the concept of the runner being sort of folklore or legend to Teyla's people kind of lends itself to that sort of storytelling, like this sort of word of mouth history. So instead of showing us in these flashbacks Ronan's whole deal, it could have been more of a like Teyla saying like, oh, my people said the runners are this, this, and this, and Ronon either agreeing or disagreeing or whatever verbally, instead of just like flashing back to these like weirdly colored flashback scenes in the middle of the episode. I don't know. I would have preferred that, I think.
Yeah, it would have... I think it would have fit the character not even reacting to what Teyla said, or what Teyla could have explained what she knows from folklore, because Ronon doesn't talk a lot. We see that in the next episode, especially. So yeah, it would have been very interesting to have him just a little bit more of a mystery. I think they already put a lot into this episode with like the 2 arcs. Like there are an A and a B plot, but also it's kind of like 2 A plots. Like it feels more like, I think they try to balance them out, and it's, I said that earlier, but I think it doesn't do justice to either characters. And especially with they're giving Ronon so much history, more than we ever got for Ford. And that's just something that makes me so angry. And it would have been so much more interesting, I think. Also, as a viewer of the show, I think it would have been nicer to have one arc end and then another one starting, and then slowly building up to Ronan's history and his struggle with the Wraith and all of that.
And I think, going back to what Tor said earlier about the air of mystery thing, and Ash touched on it as well, it just sucks because I think he has such an interesting backstory, and it's like they had to do the most unimaginative thing possible. Like in one hand, I'm like, whoa, they actually put in the effort to like film like these flashback scenes, and then it's like, but there's already like he's already giving us so much exposition on his own when he's just talking with Teyla and John. Like we don't need to see it, I think. And they could have just cut out a lot of his like explanation. And I also feel like it kind of just takes away, like, you're not like, oh, like, is he gonna join the team or not? You're not like, oh, like, is this gonna be like a conflict, like, are you guys gonna fight it out? Blah, 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 blah. You just already know, no, he's gonna be part of the team because they're giving him so much already off the bat. And it just kind of feels lazy, or maybe just I guess unimaginative, I guess is the better word. Maybe not lazy. because they put in the work, but it just wasn't good. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing about it. Is it sucks because I just feel like Stargate in general is just so shit at introducing new characters. They have never got it right once in their life. Truly, they have never introduced a good character, or a character in a good way. Let me rephrase that. And I think both of these characters deserve better, Ronon and Ford. And it's not like there was, they absolutely couldn't have a Ronon episode separately later on in the season. Are you kidding me? How many useless episodes there are? No offense to some later on. The Tower?
Oh,
the Tower exists.
It certainly does.
That alone is like a federal crime. Like, that alone is jail time, and they couldn't have just made it a Ronon episode instead. Like, we bring this up all the damn time, but of course, this was a show written in the 2000s, mostly by white men, and you just kind of just feel already that there's some level of mistreatment for not even the characters, but also just like the actors. Like, they don't really deserve to receive so little in comparison to their white male counterparts.
Agreed. I think it was Sam, you mentioned this last time we recorded this episode, but even Teyla has so little to do in this episode, which is really frustrating. In particular, I think we mentioned in regards to her relationship with Ford, like, we saw little hints how, I think out of everybody on the team, they were the closest, or at least the kindest to each other, the most consistently. Ford supporting Teyla when she found out she had, Wraith DNA as a part of her, and, vice versa. When Ford got injured, we always saw Teyla by his bedside, particularly in hide and seek. So, like, right off the bat, their relationship was clear. But in this episode, we didn't see that much between them at all. As much as I loved the Rodney and Ford focus of the episode, I would have liked to see a little bit more of Teyla's passion for finding Ford, considering their relationship in season 1.
Totally. Especially because Teyla is such a caring person, and I think it's just part of her personality to look after her team. I mean, it's Teyla's team. Let's be real.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
So it's weird that we got one crumb, if we want to call it, where she calls out for him, and she calls him Aiden, and I think that's it. So she calls him by his first name, and then they end up finding Ronon instead of Ford, and yeah, they don't even have like a goodbye scene or anything. They don't. I don't think, do they interact at all in this scene and in this episode?
No.
I don't remember. I think maybe Ford sees her, but I think she gets shot in that scene, and so she's just not there. But she's shot. She's getting shot by Ronon. Ronon shoots her a lot.
Yeah, that's another
good
thing.
point. Yeah.
I was. Can you just stop shooting her, please, dude?
He knows she's the most threatening presence there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably it. But yeah, it's really frustrating to see her not having any resolution with him at all.
Yeah. And, I forgot, there's a point where she finally starts talking. But, like, for the first, 25 minutes or so, she's just not saying anything. Like, she's just there. She's just standing. And it's like, why aren't, like, she would speak. She's like, she's, I used this term last time, but Teyla is such an active character, such an active personality, but they made her so passive. She's just completely passive in this episode, and it kind of drives me crazy, because they did all this work to establish her character introduction as, like, she's a leader. She's like this, like, super strong woman. Like, she really cares about all these people. And, like, not only now, you know, she obviously cares about Ford. You know, they obviously have history together. She obviously, you know, cares about him. So it's not just about that angle. It's also, like, she, you know, we always joke, but yeah, this is her team, basically. So it's, like, her also just feeling responsible for him. And she probably knows that they are the closest out of everyone. So she probably already add that layer in. And you also add, like, there's so many layers. The obvious one, they both have Wraith DNA in them now, or they both have, like, these ties to the Wraith, and it's like, Teyla would be the one to be like, I'm gonna go talk to Aiden because I can relate to him. He was there for me at this time in my life when I was confused. I should be there for him. It makes no sense that they had not a single scene of them interacting. And, like, it just, I said this before, but I'm gonna say it again. This is the season, you know, where I think they took so many good steps forward in terms of, like, certain things. I'm like, oh wow, they're, like, really expanding this world, or they're expanding this universe. And they also took, like, 20,000 steps backwards, where it's like, is this SG1 season 2? Like, what are you guys on? Like, this is 1998 in their mind still. Or honestly, like, 1980s, because they basically ripped off TNG, so they were just stuck there. And they just never moved on to the 2000s. Yeah, I'm being so mean to the writers this episode. Oops, sorry.
Oh my
them.
god.
Really
SG1
did.
season 2?
Oh, I
Ouch.
bullied the hell out of them. But, like, I'm sorry. It's making me so angry. Because they like, seriously, you know, we talked about it, this is an Intruder, they started off so right. They, like, have done some really fun things. You know, we'll talk about it next episode in Duet. But they keep, like, introducing new characters. And it's like, because they're like, oh, the Deathless brought them. But it's like, oh, fun, like, new people. And then they do this shit for Teyla, where she's a background character for 25 minutes. And then she finally starts talking to Ronon, and it's like, okay, this is cool, but, like, she should not be here with him. Like, she should maybe, like, meet him at the end, you know, with John. But, like, it should be, like, Rodney, Teyla, Ford, them three talking this all out. Because we know John gets his big talk with Ford, all their moments in the upcoming mid-season. So this should have been the time to have them three work out their issues separately. Like, it's getting me so angry.
Yeah, and I think another consequence of this episode being way too packed full of stuff, too much stuff going on, is not giving the characters the room to breathe at all. And for us to see them interact and give us, you know, like you mentioned, Ash, have a nice bow and resolution, at least something, a next step in these characters' arcs and relationships with each other.
Yeah, I didn't really. I say I'm watching this more critically now, but I'm missing so much. So I'm so glad to be talking to you guys. So I don't think I noticed at first how little Teyla had to do. I noticed that she got shot a lot, so she was knocked out for most of the time. It feels like. And then I zoned out at some point. But yeah, she was kind of like, I don't remember what I said last time, but it seemed a bit like she was picking up the pieces for John when he didn't know what to do anymore. He was like, okay, Teyla, you go now. But it almost like if he was giving her permission or something, or if she had to get his permission to say something or to, yeah. And even in the situation they put her in the plot with Ronon, she could. I feel like she could have done more, because she knows the Pegasus galaxy. She knows about the Runners. She knows about the Wraith much more than the humans do, like the humans from Earth. So yeah, either way, they could have done more with her and used her knowledge, her wisdom, her skills, just her whole skill set a lot more. And yeah, I'm really sad when shows seem to forget about certain characters. And yeah, we saw that in the first season with Ford.
Yeah.
let's not repeat that. I don't think it's as bad, but yeah, this especially this, we talked about it way in the beginning. I think that this was supposed to be an ensemble show. Yeah,
Not liars.
they always forget about at least one of the characters, and that's not even Elizabeth. She's barely in this episode. I mean, yeah, it makes sense because this episode takes place off-world, so it makes sense. But still, yeah, women.
I know.
Yeah.
Just to bring in some quick happiness before we go back to the sadness, I fucking love that Ronon meets Rodney and he like saves him from hanging upside down. Like that's their first meeting. Is he like cuts Rodney down or whatever, like from the little trap that he fell into. I think it's so cute. And I already love that Ronon is already saving Rodney. He's already carrying him basically. And I just love when Rodney gets baby girl-fied. And I think Ronon does that to him. Ronon looks at him and he's like, that's a baby girl. In a nice way. And the writers don't mean it in a nice way, but I mean it. Ronon in a nice way means it. He's just like, that's my little man. That's my scientist guy.
Gotta save him.
Yeah.
So true. And we'll see so many more instances of Ronon being the protector, the mama bear when it comes to Rodney, which I'm excited.
They all care for each other.
It's so cute. Another quick little thing. Sorry, I'm just like, just the quick little 1-2s. Ford and Ronon like actually have a fight. Like they actually meet. Like that's kind of wild. It kind of pisses me off that the ending of this episode takes place in the dark. Like,
Yeah.
you can't see the knife fight very well.
Yeah.
And it drove me crazy because I'm like, dude, I want to see the knife fight. Are you kidding? First of all, knife fight. That's cool. So cool. Stargate barely does those. Rarely. Second of all, I kind of dig that it's Ford and Ronon because it's very much like you're taking my spot and it's like, bitch, no, I'm not. But it's like, yeah, you are. And the tension there was so good.
Yeah.
And they're both like, surprisingly, Ford kind of like holds his own against Ronon, which is kind of wild. Because Ronon's like insanely good.
He's on the Wraith enzyme.
True.
Oh,
that's my explanation for it. Yeah. But that fight sequence was excellent. I was so impressed. And yes, it was in the dark. That was sad. TV shows and movies, just please light your scenes. Even if they take place at night, you can still... I don't fucking care if it's unrealistic. I don't fucking care. I want to see what's happening, okay?
Exactly.
Yeah. There are worse examples than this one, but it was pretty bad. It was pretty dark.
Yeah.
And it can... okay, I could go on a rant about this. But yeah, no, it can be... It's a fucking TV show that takes place in space, where the light comes from. Anyways, yeah, that fight scene was so much fun. And yeah, you're so right. It's kind of like fighting for the spot. And it's funny because Ford doesn't want to go, but Ronon doesn't want... Like, he doesn't know if he wants to stay. Or at that point, he doesn't really... I think it's not even a question if he's gonna stay with them. I don't know, but it's still like... Yeah. It's an interesting situation. And also, I forgot that we got that fight. And it's... Yeah, I was just like watching it. It was like, oh my god, I need to slow down. This is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Jason's energy in fight scenes. Like, he brings his all to them. Every Ronon fight scene, I feel like, is so fun and so, like, real and powerful and just, like, big. Yeah, like, the way he holds himself when he's fighting, like, you can see, like, his arm movements and stuff, but it still looks, like, real and true to, like, an actual fight. It's great. All right, so I was going to bring up, I did like Ronon's character introduction in the sense of his character. Like, we got to know him, which is nice. I I particularly like the fact that as a runner, he wouldn't stay in one place very long because he was worried about disturbing like villages and stuff, like the Wraith coming and pillaging villages that he had stayed at or that helped him. And I thought that was so sweet and heartbreaking and just speaks volumes of Ronon and what we're going to see of him in episodes to come. And even the little moment of him cutting Rodney down from the tree is very like a very kind Ronon thing to do, even though surface level he's a very gruff and tough guy. I also really liked Jason's delivery of lines in the episode. I feel like Ronon, being on the run from Ray so long, probably doesn't get the chance to speak to other people so much. And so him sort of like talking really quiet and like monotonously and sort of like hard to hear sometimes because it's so quiet is like another level of juiciness to the character, which is cool. And I'm a sucker for the soft-spoken, strong guy. I think that's really cool and fun.
Like, when he talks, it's all very condensed, like it just says the bare minimum. And it makes sense because, as you said, Tor, he never stayed long anywhere except for like one time, and he regretted that his whole life. Yeah, so it makes sense that he didn't want to jeopardize others by spending too much time with them or talking too long to them, because the Wraith might come after them for that.
And also the fact that he recognized ancient technology. Our boy is smart.
Yeah.
He's damn smart. And I like that too.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, when you mentioned about the villages part, I did not notice that he said that because it's so fun too. I love when, I'll give him a little bit of praise. I do love when the writers sneak in something and actually bring it up later, because we do see, and of course, the next solo episode, I think, which is called Satita, for season 3, Ronon visits the village that he stayed in and that was like burned to the ground, like was raised because, he led the Wraith there. So it's fun that he talked about it and they brought it up a season later. I love that.
Planting the seeds.
Yeah, good.
I also thought about Ronon, I don't know if it's the last scene, but one of the last scenes where he is in Atlantis and he's like, he has a room. I think he has a pretty good view of the city, but I guess just all the rooms in Atlantis have a good view, right?
Can't go wrong.
And
Yeah.
And he says, like, the gods are unnecessary or something. And I think John says, like, yeah, they're here to... I don't know what he says, but Ronan is like, yeah, no, they're unnecessary because I can take them on. Like, if I wanted to go, I could leave. I could just leave. They are not holding me back. And I thought it was just... And he said it again in such a monotonous way, like just the way he talks. He talked all the time in this episode. I was like, he's amazing. I love him.
Yeah, and I will say, even though we kind of dragged the flashbacks, I think the one aspect of it that they did well was him at the end when they show him what's left of Satita, and he's like, I can't go anywhere. He's like, my home's destroyed. And he kind of just walks off, and Elizabeth and John are like, are you going to be okay?
No.
Yeah, no. I think that part was honestly really well done. I don't think the flashbacks enhanced any of that. I think just seeing that on its own would have been really just as powerful. And, we see earlier too, when Carson is digging that shit out of his body, that Teyla and Carson both kind of look at him when they see all of his scars, and they're just like, dude, like, how are you this guard up. And it's so sad. Like, Ronon, like, looks down or something, or he kind of looks ashamed or, like, scared of being so vulnerable that he, like, people are seeing his scars, and literally tore me up. And I think Jason did such a good job in both of those scenes, especially just kind of showing his sadness and then kind of showing his shame, and like just a range of emotions that come with sort of being on the run for 7 years and honestly being kind of held hostage or like being a prisoner, you know, even though he was free to go wherever he wanted to, he really wasn't. He was trapped in like a maze, almost like a little hamster on a wheel. I don't know why I brought that in there. It just made it just funny. But that was supposed to be sad. But yeah, no. So I do have to give major props to Jason for just fully delivering. And I think one of the things that's so good about Ronon is even when he's given jack shit to do in an episode, I think Jason is always just kind of doing something in the background, or that like kind of like makes you like smile, or that like makes you just kind of appreciate the little things about Ronon.
Yeah, totally. His physical acting and facial expressions are sublime. So good. Perfect casting for that character.
And it's no wonder he went on to become a superstar.
Yes.
But we'll always remember him. We'll always cheer him on as he's Ronon next to me always.
Always.
Same.
And I still think Ronon is one of my favorite characters he's ever played. Not that I've seen a lot of his filmography. I've seen some, obviously, like the more mainstream things he's done, but I still think Ronon is my favorite.
Totally.
Yeah. Same.
His gun twirls are the best. Never gets old.
He's we don't see that much in this episode, but he's such a teddy bear. He's such a teddy bear. Like he has like a very rough exterior. He looks like he could kill you, but he's actually a cinnamon roll.
Exactly. Speaking of people that can kill you, Sheppard in this episode was super interesting.
Amazing transition.
I tried.
It worked.
I was really delighted at the beginning of the episode when Sheppard totally mocked military protocol and sort of Caldwell by extension, where he was basically like, Caldwell was getting mad because he didn't report about something like a threat, and Sheppard kind of makes fun of him for it by going through the color codes that the military uses for certain situations. And I just like the fact that despite his promotion to colonel, and the pride he feels about that, he's not the military's bitch. Like, he's still very much his own man, and he's gonna do things his own way. And he still lets his emotions guide him to what he believes is right. And in that instance, it was helping Ford, which I appreciated. I like that rebel part of Sheppard a lot. I also thought it was so deplorable when Colonel threw a Sumner in John's face once again, saying like, oh, it should be easy for you to kill Ford because you killed Colonel Sumner. And for me, those are two very different circumstances. I feel like Sumner was definitely a mercy killing and less of I'm going to kill you now because you're going to give Earth up to the enemy moment. Considering that the Wraith was feeding on Sumner at the time. And so I don't see John ever killing Ford for that reason. One, I don't think he believes in his heart that Ford would ever willingly give them up, Atlantis or Earth, because Ford is his friend. He trusts him. He's team. And yeah, like, no, he would never kill him for that reason. He would never believe he would do that. So, boo, Caldwell.
I know, it's so not the same thing. It's such a, how can you compare these two situations? You brought it to a point, But yeah, and it's so funny to me when people accuse John of being like emotionally attached to his team or whatever, because Caldwell is the same. He's just he only trusts his Daedalus crew and no one else. Like, how is that not being like emotional or something? Yeah, he's such an ass, and they keep throwing Sumner into John's face. It's so as if he's not traumatized enough, as if he's not tormenting himself enough about that. Yeah, it's so my poor baby girl.
Exactly.
Leave him alone. Leave him alone. He's been through so much. Yeah, no, poor John. I'm glad we can all baby girlify John.
Yeah.
It's just so easy, but in this moment, like, it's so mean of Caldwell just to throw that in his face, and especially because, like, this is not the first time some fucking colonel or whatever has thrown, you know, we saw it with Colonel Everett, where he was like, you did the same thing, and then at the end he was like begging, he was like, God, I wish you killed me. And I was like, okay, so you understand now. Like, you understand what John went through. And Caldwell still doesn't understand, right? He won't understand that ever. So it's frustrating that John has to kind of, again, just sit here and take it from all these damn colonels. And he literally escaped to space. He went to another galaxy to avoid getting this sort of, you know, reprimands, because Elizabeth's not going to do, like, it's not going to dress him down like that, you know? But, like, no, they followed him over here, and they're still giving John shit for all of his choices. And John is a better person, because I would have snapped at some point if all these damn colonels for years were bringing up all my past mistakes and being like, you did this again. And no, yeah. But I will say that on the flip side, I will say, Caldwell is so funny to me. He was serving cunt this episode.
He was.
He is just there. He is there to just be a bitch. He is, like, literally there to cause drama, and he, like, walks away. And I have to just bring up, I fucking love that ending scene of him coming in. He, like, totally, like, scolds the entire team. He's like, you guys are basically, he calls them fucking children. And then he, like, leaves out the door. And everyone's face is so funny. They just show everyone, and they're just, like, Elizabeth's, like, looking around. Like, everyone's just like, damn, like, we just got, they have no rebuttal.
Yeah, he's hilarious. He's such an asshole, but yeah, it's fun to see the team, like the Atlantis team, kind of team up against him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to see that.
It's hilarious. Like, that end scene, Caldwell accuses John of having feelings, and in that instant, John is like, you are now my mortal enemy. How dare you accuse me of something like that?
How dare you accuse me of having feelings?
John's like, I would never.
Also, about that last scene, I think it's after Caldwell left, and or maybe it's while he's still there, and Rodney kind of says, I think first it's John who says, yeah, he shot Ford, so he shot him, he's injured, and then Rodney was like, by the way, I shot him too, and he was kind of proud of himself, and yeah, everybody like, okay, good job, Rodney, thank you, thanks for your contribution. I thought it was cute.
Elizabeth's reaction was my favorite part of that whole thing. It made it.
I think I have just one more thing, and that's not related to anything.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I don't know if we learned that earlier, but somewhere in the middle they mentioned that they use Atlantis Standard Time, and I love that. I love it so much because I think Lantia, like the planet they're on, have like 26 or 27 hour days, and they have an Atlantis Standard Time. And that's what they orient themselves from when they like go on missions. And I thought, I love that because I always love it when other planets, like, I don't care if they look like Canada. I'm fine with that. But they can't all have 24 hours a day. That's just unrealistic. So I enjoyed this little. It was like in I think Lorne said it that they were like, yeah, that time Atlantis Standard. I was like, they have an Atlantis Standard Time.
So true. It cements Atlantis as home, as base, and also it's how my colony Atlantis idea can still win. They have their own time. They don't run on Earth time anymore. I love
Self-sufficient.
it. Exactly.
Oh my god, the time conversion from Earth to Atlantis.
I would love to know.
I know. That's
Gonna be
hell.
so, yeah, it's worse than what we have to deal with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Way worse. Okay, well. Oh, this is a long one because we had a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
We had a lot to talk about. There's a lot in this episode. But let's head over first to the Bechdel test, which I think we can all guess the answer to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This episode fails.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Because, yeah, we talked about it. Teyla is barely in it, and Elizabeth is barely in it, so.
That was quick and sad. But we'll head on over to me, which is just a very short behind the scenes that we have. This episode was directed by our good old pal, Martin Wood. And it was written by Robert C. Cooper. This episode takes place exactly 1 week after the events of Intruder, which is kind of interesting. Good to know. This is also the first episode in which none of the off-world teams carry name, country, or Atlantis expedition patches, signifying their attempt to hide the fact that Atlantis still exists.
Ooh.
It's a really fun little detail that I really enjoy.
That's cool.
I always not wondered, but I always forgot that, like, there's actually a reason why they stopped wearing the patches on their jackets. There's an actual in-canon explanation. Just another one. So Dan Payne plays Lieutenant Reed, and he's actually played a lot of Jaffa. And he's also played Sergeant Allen in the Fragile Balance. So another time where they love to reuse good old extras. And then we have our resident Wraith guy, James Nafazanos, who plays the Wraith Commander in this episode, and he previously played Jimmy and Steve. So
Dang.
he is our Wraith guy. Yeah. This episode is called Manhunt in French. It is called The Runaway in Russian.
Ooh.
It is called The Pursued in Hungarian, and it is also called The Runner in German.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, fun. And I have a little quote, or I have a few little things. So I got this from an interview that Tori Higginson did with Steve Eremo, and she said, "Introducing Jason has been wonderful. He's brought a new energy on set, both as an actor and his character. Because Ronon has such a strong personality, it's forcing the other characters to reveal more about themselves in response to him, which is terrific."
Oh, I love that.
I think it's so cute, not only just because Tori and Jason friendship, but I love Elizabeth and Ronon, their dynamic. And so this is just a little tease of what's to come. There's also a funny story that Martin Wood told to the interview. Okay, so basically, right, they had to film the scene of, like, I think when him and Ford run into each other in the forest, and he runs off. And so Jason was telling them hey, by the way, I have bad knees, which I did not know, but I guess he has bad knees. Okay, he's done a lot of stuff now, so I'm hoping his knees are okay.
Shocking. Oh my god.
Yeah. But he told Martin Wood, hey, I have bad knees. And they're like, don't worry about it. Just we're gonna follow you with the camera, running, so whatever, it's fine. And so they did the take, and apparently he booked it. He ran so fast, the camera literally lost him in the woods almost immediately, because he just fucking booked it. And they were like, dude, we thought you had bad knees. We're what the fuck? And he was I do, but I wanted to put he just put his all into it. I just thought that was a really fun,
Aww.
just a little sweet story that Martin Wood told.
That is hilarious.
I think it just highlights Jason's energy and care that he brought to Ronon.
We love to see it.
We do.
Love to see it. And next up, we have super quick. We have 2 fic recommendations for you today.
Ooh.
I'll pass it over to Tor for the first one.
All right. So we have a very, very, very ancient fic that was posted not on AO3. You cannot find it on our glorious archive. It's actually available on the archive version of this ancient website known only to us old ancients in the Stargate fandom, and that is Wraithbait. Yes, Wraithbait was a website that hosted Stargate Atlantis fanfiction prior to the birth of Archive of Our Own. And it's, I think, gone from the internet now, but many of fics are still available through the Wayback Machine, such as this one, because it was quite interesting and good and popular at the time. And it is called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern by Wintertime. And, of course, we'll be linking the fic in the show notes. It's a gen fic, and it is Ford and Rodney centric. And basically, it's exploring their dynamic in this episode if it were to be carried on into the future. If Rodney decided to stay with Ford and maybe take the Wraith enzyme himself. So I don't want to spoil anything, but it's amazing. It's really well written. And just so compelling if you're wanting more meat for these 2 characters. And Wintertime is an excellent writer. She also wrote a very long, like novel-length, Rodney-centric fic that's really good. Hit me up on my personal Tumblr if you want the link to it as well. Because I think she only hosted it on her live journal. So it's another one of those things that's hard to find. But anyways, check out that fic. It's really good.
We got our Ford recommendation, and I wanted to hop on and recommend also a Ronon fic because this is kind of like their shared episode. So of course I gotta rec the infamous, the iconic My Home and Native Land by Copper Badge. It's gen, it's about 17k words, so pretty short in terms of Atlantis fic. But it is really, really, really cute. It's basically Ronan's budding friendship with Chuck, the head gate tech of the Atlantis mission. And he discovers the strange and alien ways of Canadians. And they just bond over culture. And it's just so endearing. It's so sweet. If you just need some comfort, Ronon fic, and just some fun Atlantis shenanigans involved, of course, with our favorite team members, I cannot recommend you this fic enough.
I might actually have to start reading more fic now that we always recommend something.
You know, we usually kind of rate the episode. I feel like this episode is really hard to rate. I wouldn't know what number to give it genuinely, because it has some really good, and as you've heard, it has some things we strongly disagree with and strongly dislike. So I don't know if I could put a number to it. Guys, do you guys have a number you can maybe put to the episode?
That's so tough. Because the things it does well, it does really well, and the things it doesn't do well really bother me. So it's so hard to give it like a balanced score.
Yeah, I think I'm bad at rating. Because I feel like either it's very good or not good. And like I don't know if there's a in between for me. I think I might give this like an 8 out of 10 still, because I enjoy watching this episode. Despite all the things we talked about. Yeah. You don't have to rate it just because I did it now.
No. I'm trying to. It's just. I think honestly, it sounds kind of sad to say, but I think I enjoyed this episode a lot more when I didn't have our analyzing goggles on. Because I could just be like, this is fun, like Rodney and Ford. But now that like we've analyzed it to hell, I'm like, I see so many things that I dislike about it. So I feel like I have to give it like a 6 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is kind of so mean. So it feels evil. But then I remember Teyla in the episode, and then I was like, no, yeah, it's just.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll take the middle ground and say 7.
Okay.
7 is
Perfect.
it's my lucky number also.
Aww.
It is.
Yeah, no, 7. I think it fits. I think it fits this episode. But yeah, so don't forget to check out all of our socials linked up and down below. You can find all of our Jumping Puddles socials, our fic recs. We also included time stamps now, so you guys can kind of just skip around and listen to things that you want to, or if you want to skip a section, or if you just want to pause it and like take a break, you can come back, and find a section again. Because again, this episode was kind of sad and kind of heavy, very bittersweet,
Long.
and very long. Yeah, sorry about that, but we hope there was enough happiness and joy to balance out this episode. We hope we made it fun, kind of, amidst all of our critiques. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, you clowns, listen up. I don't often get a chance to say this, so savor it. Good work, boys and girls. Let's go home.